Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This reports for the 12th. Well, we got a little bit of flatness, still below the ABM though, and that was critical. But when we look at our readings, significant because we have the MBI white crossing above red and the magenta dipping below the 25 level. That should give us some continued softness in the market. What I was pointing out from before though is when we get this negative of a steel, the move back above negative 13.5 would be where we would be more cautious about the expectation of moving lower. So we'll see if that continues higher, but overall, still soft at best, and any selling could really start to accelerate. Should we see white move above magenta, then we will be looking at something closer to what happened over here, which was far more significant and lasting. So definitely keep an eye on that. This particular point, it's just a little bit suspect with the rising gold and Azure now. Usually those have to flatten out before you get continued selling. So the expectation in our case was we were just looking for positive extreme fill, just to smooth things out, and it's more or less what we saw, particularly with the NASDAQ filling everything exactly. Pretty identical readings as far as that goes. If we see a separation between the DOC cyan and green, we could expect more breakdown, but they're pretty much trailing equally, so it's no conviction either way. Continuation on the softness of bonds, and that's going to be an interesting catalyst, because if we get another dump out of bonds with rising yield, that's going to put more pressure downside on the market, because people will flip to the higher yield without taking any risk in the market, particularly at these levels. And of course, the Eurozone continuing to puke. It gets worse. I mean, you've got all these restrictions, and they added the pass, the Euro pass for what they call it, the green pass, for allowing vaccinated only in restaurants, things like that. And it's just created a standstill here and throughout Europe, and that's just going to push investors in a way helpful to the S&P in that, because it drives the market, because you're having an influx of capital. So that's one of those contrarian effects. From a Bitcoin standpoint, again, the short action picking the lead on that one. Just little quick ones, but enough to make a difference. And again, that short side from a future standpoint makes a difference. Particularly when, like I said, when we look at it from a tick standpoint, these down moves tend to have bigger days than the upside. And that's just the nature of how limited the trade is. Vis-a-vis that, from a 50K standpoint, it started off with the long from a GAM standpoint on that, but recognized it just wasn't going anywhere. We had a brief respite of the dots right here, which were indicating the potential for a move. But like I pointed out on our pre-market morning, when the red leads this, the pop-up here usually leads to a decay in price, usually a little more substantial than this, but it was still significant enough that as soon as it gets there, and like I was pointing out, I shorted up at the peak range and just waited for it. And sure enough, it produced that. And the fact that we ended up then with white above clearly was pushing towards a move towards the zero. It still would be the expectation within the next cell configuration. The fact that it didn't do it, not clear in any way, because we didn't even get an orange dip below red DOC at all either. So did form P2, so I'm always looking for that one, because if green DOC continues to rise, you can see shakeouts improved significantly. So there was significant accumulation, which was probably enough to hold it up. Turning to the 5K, again, back to this single strand where the day began turnover within one screen, compared to the other day when we had a significant down day and more than double what we were seeing here. So we ended up with this magenta coloring is a positive move off of white MBI, which is where it took place here. I'll change the color to green. I just did it, I forgot that it was still within that magenta color, which typically we leave for short configurations. But as they started to accumulate, the first one taking place right about here, but by the second move there, where it was clear that we started to roll over, then it just became, whether you took early here or waited for the white MBI to move towards that red. And like I've pointed out before, once it starts that incline and you have the moving of the red, then you can attack that. So whether it was the first or second one, it still produced the dip to the 50%, slight move back up, gave another sell signal. That one produced a little bit lower, and then by the time the last one came, it fulfilled the white MBI projection to the 0%, which it did in fact hit right there. And then it was just pretty much nonsense, didn't move a whole lot back and forth. But each one of these pops resulted with the white prepping over the magenta, and when that does, I'm just looking for that crossover, particularly magenta below the 25. Ideally, if magenta's below the 25 and dips below the MBI green, or green there, then you've got a real good shot. But it was just took the short entry up there and literally just set it for a couple of ticks above the 0, and just waited for it to fill. And it took a while, but it did, so it was fine. As always, though, I will keep updating you on relevant details, and hopefully have an update altering these to the green, and then the flip over from the magenta dot to the red, just adding a little bit of extra conditions for that short setup where we know that we're in continuation longs and stuff, so we don't get early premature markings. As always, though, I will continue to update you on Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.